we get to a place where we've said no to ourselves around so many opportunities. We've said no to possibilities about what work I could get, what relationship I could have, where could I live, fill in any blank you want, that it really feels like we have no options.
Welcome to the Ignited Recovery Podcast, a new way forward for anyone looking for answers but feeling left out. If you've been searching for empowerment, triumph, and purpose, you've found them right here. You won't hear the same solutions, and you're not going to have any excuses to fall back on, because Ignited Recovery allows heroes to rise and become their best selves. I'm Dr. Adi Jaffe, and I can't wait to be your guide on this journey. Are you ready to become an ignited hero?
Good day. I'm coming in from Santa Fe today. So quite the adventure. And that's going to factor into how we're going to open today anyway. So rock and roll. Okay. So I told you I'm here and I'm in New Mexico. Kai is shooting an episode for an Amazon show, which is really amazing. It's just he's here for 3 weeks. There was also a COVID scare in the beginning, so it actually ended up being almost 4 total weeks. And Sophie was with him for the first 2 weeks, and we decided it was just too much for my wife to spend an entire month away from the family, so we kind of switched in the middle so that Kai would have both of us here, and also so that Noah, our 2-year-old, and Leo, our middle child, wouldn't be without their mom for a month. So that's how I ended up here. But I did an episode on the scavenger hunt concept of sort of looking at life as a scavenger hunt. And these things are coming more and more into the forefront for me. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about that concept here and really how I got here. You know, I talk about this a lot, but people look at outcomes so much, right? We look at what people's lives look like based on how we see them right now so much. And so it can sound so fun and exciting. Oh my God, Kai is shooting an Amazon show, and how amazing is that? And we get to travel with him. But obviously that has nothing to do with how we got here, right? And so forget for a second, in the email I get really far into it, right? Like I almost didn't have Kai because I screwed up my relationship so badly around like porn and sex addiction 10 years ago, even though I was sober for meth still at the time, that we almost didn't have him. But even when we had our first 2 kids, my wife was in the industry in the sense that she had done commercials before. And so she would take the kids on these auditions. It's kind of like cliche, right? You live in LA, you got to go on auditions. But I'm not in that world. And so it never enticed me. It was never exciting to me. And it's not exciting, to be perfectly honest. When Kai started out, it'd be him and maybe his younger brother in the car driving around LA with their mom. She didn't have a full-time job at the time. She had started her own company, but it wasn't making any money. She would sometimes be in the car for 2, 3, 4 hours with them, going to a handful of auditions. And we were living in the Valley. They paid $0, and you don't get 80 to 90% of the auditions you go on. And I remember multiple times saying to Sophie, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? I don't understand. You get a gig every once in a while, and that's great, and you can keep going on those. But like, why are you dragging the kids? Sometimes it'd be like 10, 12 hours a week in the car going to these auditions. And it took maybe a year or 2 before anybody got a job that I would even consider kind of, you know, they got an actual gig out of the auditions. And then it built. And then all of a sudden one kid was doing a commercial here and there, and the other one was doing one. And then they'd do a print ad. And next thing you know, last year, you know, I think that each one of them did about 6 or 7 different little jobs. But then we were in Mexico on vacation, and Kai got this opportunity to audition for a gig. And I want you to imagine, right? He started at 2, he's 10. So it's been 8 years that I just kind of ran through in my head really, really quickly here for you guys. But now we're on vacation in Tulum. We haven't had to take a vacation in a while because of Corona and everything. So it's kind of an exciting time for us to spend time alone. Kai gets this audition, and now on vacation, he spent 3 or 4 hours between practicing this thing, shooting it, and submitting multiple attempts to his agent so they could approve it, and then it got in. And then we get home, and he booked it. He booked this show, the first actual TV, like theatrical thing that he'd done. As I look at that trajectory, and as I spend time with him here, the number of things that had to go right, the number of efforts, the number of moments of sort of tension and stress that my wife and I went through, or that my wife would go through sitting in traffic in LA, is enormous, right? Hundreds of individual instances over about a decade, if you really look at it. And nothing was guaranteed. It's not like when I was asking Sophie why she was doing this, she knew that it was going to work. And it's not like I knew that it wasn't going to work. And then to take it one level farther, me 3 or 4 years ago wouldn't be sitting in this trailer right now. Because in my head, I had too much important stuff to do to fly, to kind of like chaperone. I'm not doing anything. Literally, I go to sleep in the room with him. I wake up, I drive him to set, and the rest of the time I just sit around on my butt. But in my head, I wouldn't have taken the opportunity. I wouldn't have done it because there were things holding me back. And for anybody, I don't know how many of you listen to the Scavenger Hunt podcast, or you haven't. There'll be a link for you if you haven't checked it out. But if you remember scavenger hunts, the whole idea is to have fun. The whole idea is to kind of just follow the next clue that's ahead of you in life. And I'm giving you an example where I actually had a hard time with it, right? I wasn't following the clues. My wife was the one in this case following the clues, and the whole family sort of went on the scavenger hunt with her. And now we're 8 years later on a trailer in an Amazon shoot in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and my kid's 10 years old. I don't know what this is going to do for the rest of his life, but I guarantee one thing: if my wife hadn't followed that little breadcrumb trail, there'd be a lot of opportunities he wouldn't have right now. Here's the thing. So many of us say no over and over and over in our own life. We say no to ourselves. We say no to other people. We say no to potential jobs, books to read, workshops to go to, I don't know, workouts, food items, whatever it is. We just say no. And oftentimes the reason we say no is because we've sort of gotten used to a certain way of doing things. How many people feel what I'm saying here right now? Like even if we take an example as simple as food, like how many people feel like, I sort of know what I'm going to eat next week, right? I kind of have like 8 to 10 things that I switch in and out, and that's sort of what my life looks like. I'm going to try to really present a case for you guys today. And the case is for saying yes to as many new things as you can, and almost limiting your way, almost having to get yourself out of the potential of saying no. Even if you're going to say no to something, you have to say it through yes. And I'll give you an example of what I actually literally mean by that. And those of you who've been here with me again for a while, know this. I think deprivation is our enemy almost always in life. We get to a place where we've said no to ourselves around so many opportunities. We've said no to possibilities about what work I could get, what relationship I could have, where could I live, fill in any blank you want, that it really feels like we have no options. How many people have been there before? It just feels like I'm stuck here and I'm going to be stuck here. This is what I've got to play with. So what I'm going to challenge you on today is a way to almost rewrite that. And I'm going to try to show you some evidence, and I'm going to relate back to some of the things we talk about in the course. I want to make an emphatic case for you to understand that the more curiosity and the more yes, even if you don't know what's on the other side of that yes, you can muster up, the faster the probability of you getting where you want to get. And I know that's scary, but I want to show you, where's my PowerPoint? Okay. So I'm not exactly going to make this look very pretty because I'm just kind of doing this by screen sharing in this way right here. But in the course, some of you are not in module 4, and that is totally fine. But in the course, I talk about how there are 3 things that you need to get where you want to get in life. And I equate it to any other trip, any other journey you've ever taken. And they go along with our 3 principles. So I'll remind you all so you remember what they are. Honest exploration is the idea of how do you get here and where are you? Honest exploration. When we do honest exploration, oftentimes we find out a lot of things we don't like, but it's our starting point. It's where we begin the journey. Any journey requires a starting point. A lot of times we focus on where we want to go first. Like I want to go to San Francisco, let's say. Well, that's great, but if I don't know where I'm starting, San Francisco doesn't matter because San Francisco is south of some places, east of others, west of others, north of others, right? So I need to have a starting point and an end point to be able to actually plan a journey. And here's the magic. And I think this is what we try to do for you at Ignited. Once you understand the starting point and the end point you want to get to, there are thousands of roads connecting those two. You can drive to San Francisco, ride a bike, ride a skateboard, drive, fly a plane, fly a chopper, right? You can take a boat. And either one of those, any one of those can be taken through hundreds of different routes. But to have a journey, beginning and end, and then you have to map out a course. The part we're going to talk about today is the mapping out of the course. Because if we're honest about it, a lot of us want, well, actually, we probably want the trek to look even simpler than this, right? We want like a straight line is really what we want. But at least we say to ourselves, it's probably not going to be a straight line. Like there's probably going to be some turns I have to take along the way, some hurdles. And we think that this is what we're going after. Let me just find this map of my life out. But if we're really honest about it, the map of our life is more like this. And you may not like it, and I may not enjoy that much. But this is probably more realistic. There are hundreds of potential turns from any point. What's even worse about it, I can't show you this in the drawing, but when you really start, you start with a little circle that you can see, and you have no idea what's behind that circle. It's just dark. And life is about exploring the map. Once you get familiar with your life's map, you read it like you read a map. Hey, you don't go in that area, you do go here. That neighborhood you can hang out in a little bit, but don't spend too much time in it, right? That street, if you turn left there, it gets into a dead end. It's not unknowable, it's just you don't know it. Now, here's the thing. If you've been spending, and all of you on this right now have been spending too long of a period of time in a neighborhood you don't like, guess what? The only way out of it is exploration. And every street out of it feels unfamiliar. Every way out of your current life is going to be unfamiliar because if it was familiar, you'd be doing it right now and you wouldn't be here. That's the good news. And so what we're dealing with really is this. We've got a maze. All of us have our life's maze ahead of us. There is a solution. Does anybody in this room right now have a doubt that with enough time and maybe an eraser and a pencil, you could find your way out of this maze? And I mean that in a literal sense. Like if I gave you a pencil, anybody think that you couldn't? You just don't have the brain capacity to be able to find your way out of this maze. It might take some time, but we could. How many people think, yeah, I could do it? I suck at mazes and I hate doing it the entire time, but I could figure it out. That's the challenge ahead of us, right? The challenge ahead of us is how do we get you to that place? So I talk about this in the course all the time, the journey and the map, etc. But I just wanted to kind of bring us back to that concept because it's a really important one. Too many of us get stuck when something doesn't work, thinking there's something wrong with us, and that's why this attempt didn't work. If I don't know anything about where I'm going, like if this is a brand new experience and I only have the experience in one little neighborhood of my life, it's going to be overwhelming to get started. That's okay. That's why we have meetings like this. That's why you have coaches. That's why you have friends. That's why you have people who will hold your hand through it. And that's, I hope, again, one of the things that we do here as a community for you. But the map is there. When you take a turn, there will be an outcome, right? We all know that. When you try something you've never tried before, there will be an outcome. And then you get to figure out if you like it or not. If it's terrible, it means nothing about who you are as a human being. If it's amazing, by the way, I hate saying it too, but it means nothing about who you are as a human being, right? This is exploration at its highest sense. And I'll take it back to where I'm sitting right now. If I could show you outside, it's insane. I feel like I'm on a movie set. By the way, I have no interest in being in the movie industry myself. Never have, don't care about it, which is why I wasn't the guy to take the kids on auditions. But I see my boy on a set with actors. It's like an 18th century thing. He's wearing like a 3-piece 18th century costume. It's like this beautiful experience to get to. And today we talked about his scene and what it meant and all this stuff. It's a beautiful experience I never would have known I wanted. I never would have gone after. I had no way what the path to know what the path here was. None. Like, it was so outside of my world. And again, I want to kind of explain things about myself as well. Like, I come from an academic family. Getting a PhD, becoming a professor, all those things were the way you win. Writing a book, all that stuff, right? This isn't in the plan. It's just not. It's not part of what was written. But I love it. And I know for each and every one of you, there has been a time where you've been limited. You've been living in, if I'm following this analogy, you've been living in this little crappy neighborhood in your life. And you felt like there's no way out. And because you felt like there's no way out, you got really comfortable with that neighborhood. Well, I don't really like that person, but they live close enough and they're not terrible, so I'll just have them in my life because it's better than having nobody, or whatever your version of getting stuck in this neighborhood is. And what we're going to talk about are the reasons to just start saying yes. Because I don't think it's a random act. I think it's an intentional act. I don't know if the next yes that you give will take you where you want. Removing expectations is actually one of the things I'm going to ask you to do. Because if we only take the routes that we expect to be good, we are relying on what we know right now to lead us into the future. And if I've learned something about my life, is I have no idea right now where my future will be. None. And any plan that I make is really just limiting my future based on what I think I can do right now. So get rid of expectations. You don't need expectations. And for those of you who aren't sure that you have enough strength, I totally get it. That's what we're here for. We're here for you to say, hey, I'm going to take this leap. I'm really, really scared. What do I do? Or I have 15 options. I don't even know what the first yes is. You know, somebody said I overthink my choices. Boy, do I get that, right? You know what I do now? I literally have like my own little advisory board. 2, 3, 4 people in my life that I trust. And I go, you know what? I've been thinking about this for 3 weeks. I'm sick and tired of thinking about it. I don't want to think anymore. Somebody help me out. What am I not seeing in these options? If I really believe that it doesn't matter what I say yes to, because it's just going to present a whole new set of opportunities that I get to act on then it's just the barriers are in my head. Okay. So the first one is, and this will sound scary to some of you, but the first reason to say yes is going to take you down unfamiliar paths. For some of you, that sounds scary by itself, but let's be honest. You're here because there are current paths that you don't like. I used to always say this, that we get so used to the rain cloud above our heads raining on us all the time. I hope I'm not about to make a judgment, but it's like living in Seattle, right? Like, you get so used to the fact that it rains all the time. You just kind of go like, well, it's raining. But you have a choice. If you don't mind rain, then all good. If you hate the rain, then you get a chance. I'm just letting you know the yes will feel uncomfortable and it will be unfamiliar. But that's the point. If we take back that example, let me see if I can reshare that. The example of the map. Here's what I know for sure. But if you do this, so let's say you're starting here at this point. I see 1, 2, 3, 4 options of where to go from that one point. Now, if I don't know where those points are leading, it is almost useless to try to figure it out because you're just guessing anyway. What you'll see over time as you start saying yes is you will start understanding the lay of the land. But you have to start out by exploring, right? If I decide to go north here, at some point I will have other options. I could turn here and then there's all these options. I can not turn and go here and then there's another fork, right? Allow the experience to be unfamiliar. Allow yourself to revel in the idea that you don't need to know. It's actually counterproductive to know, because from the place you come from in this moment, any knowledge you have is ancient and old. The closest thing to knowledge I will want you to use is your intuition. But know that your intuition is also something you hone, right? It's like a knife, you sharpen it. Because so many of us are, man, I remember when I was in the thick of it, I did everything I could to not listen to my gut. Because my gut told me I was making the wrong choice hundreds of times. And so I just kind of learned to block it or numb out or ignore it more than anything else. So it'll take you a moment to get to become more familiar with what your gut instincts actually mean. But yes, will you down unfamiliar paths, and that is a good idea. So any of those routes out of your current sort of like neighborhood you don't enjoy in your life will be good. And in order to talk about how to deal with the anxiety is to me an emotion that can get really easily confusing and overwhelming. And biologically, you may have heard this idea before, but biologically, the difference between excitement and anxiety is not that great. Your heart rate goes up, your breathing becomes shallower, you get more active and agitated. Physically, you're aroused, right? An arousal state. Here's the difference. The way I've seen it, the only difference between anxiety and excitement. What you believe is going to happen at the end of the experience is the only difference. When you're excited, there's something arousing and you think it's going to turn out well. I'm going to get a present. I'm going to get a promotion. I'm going to go on a trip. I'm excited and it's going to go well. When you're anxious, you're excited and you think it's going to turn out badly. I'm going to get fired. I'm going to get yelled at. My boyfriend's going to break up with me. My girlfriend found out the thing that I've been hiding from her. Whatever that is, that's anxiety. And that's the difference. Now, here's the insanity for me in my own experience, and maybe you've experienced this before. I've learned over and over, I had learned, this is different now, but I had learned over and over that I screw everything up so much from other people, from my internal language, that I just assumed that everything I did would turn out badly. And so then I was inundated with anxiety. I just lived anxious. And what I'm saying for now, if you can suspend disbelief, that's why I said remove expectations. If you can get yourself to the place, I was not in that place when I was younger. So maybe some of you are there and that's beautiful for you. And I applaud you for it. If you can even get yourself to a place where you believe, you know what, I'm going to try this thing and it's going to be amazing, then that's great. But if that's too hard for you, how about you just remove the expectation about how it's going to turn out at all and just let it play out. If you can do that, that curiosity alone will let you pick paths that you wouldn't have otherwise. And what I found in my own life is the more paths I choose that I knew nothing about, the more opens up. And that plays into this next piece here. Yes is going to break you out of your habits. Now, again, this sounds really, really small. But if you're like me and like so many of the other people I've worked with, you're used to saying no. So saying no or obscuring opportunities or removing them or isolating, that's a habit. It's something you're used to doing. Hey, do you want to go out to that party? No, I don't want to go. Do you want to go travel to that place? No, I don't want to. Hey, it looks like you should try to get a different job. You don't like the job. That's fine. I'll just be here, right? You're so used to saying no to everything. That's a habit. Just the act of making yourself break that habit to say yes will already teach you something. As you do it, you will learn that habits are not inevitable built-in instincts. They're just not. And when you find yourself saying yes in an opportunity where before you would have said no, it will teach your brain that you can change habits. And so even though it's a tiny little break in habitual behavior, from a word, a yes to a no, it'll prove to yourself that you can do that over and over and over. And some of you have heard me talk about my 1% principle. If that's where we start is with 1%, that's amazing. If you can change one little thing about what you do every day, one little thing, a year from now, you will not recognize the life you live. So many of us think we have to fly off a bridge or make a wholesale change, go from 0 to 100 in a day. I mean, that's great when you have those opportunities and moments. It is a beautiful experience, but to me, they're far more rare. Gradual improvement is better. So yes, will break you out of habits. Yes is going to introduce you to new people, experiences, possibilities that you literally don't have available to you right now. So if you even want to have fun, whatever fun means to you, that used to be a fun description by itself. Whenever we used to have a group, I'd say, people say, well, I'm never going to have fun again because I'm not going to be able to get drunk or stoned or whatever the thing is. And I go, what's fun? And sometimes it would take us 45 minutes to figure out what fun is. So, whatever fun is for you, when you think about it right now, like we talked about food in the beginning, I don't know when the last time was that you allowed yourself to just have fun. I don't know how many things are in your life in this moment as we talk right here, wherever you're sitting, where fun is even on the radar, like where you could call somebody to have fun, or there's a thing in your life that could produce fun. When we get stuck and we get isolated, our life gets a little small because the safety is in being able to manage the little bit that we have to manage. The moment you start introducing yourself to new experiences, by that I mean sometimes literally places, restaurants, people, you will find little opportunities. And again, you start honing in that intuition, and those opportunities will open up. I'm too old now, so when I talk about this game, a lot of people don't know what I'm talking about. But remember that game Minesweeper on PCs? The concept, I know this is a very high-level clinical concept I'm about to mention here, but remember Minesweeper? You were hoping for those moments where you would press one square and like 27 would open up. But the idea is you're looking for mines in this empty space that you don't know anything about. Sometimes you would hit one square and it would connect, like it would be like this complete empty, it's an old ass game. It is an old ass game. It would open up a quarter of the field and you'd be like, yes. Sometimes you would literally, well, I would literally yell that out. I might be geekier than you guys. But that's what we're looking for in life. We're looking for a place, a person, an experience where you have it. Some of you have asked me before, like, some of you have asked me before, like, how do you find your purpose? How do you figure out? Because I'm on a trailer doing this, and I bought a microphone to do it because I love these meetings. I love what we're doing at Ignited. I don't do it because it's my job. And so a lot of you have asked, how do you find that thing? Well, this is how you find the thing. You say yes to things you never would have said yes to before. And then just like it hit me one day, because the guy who gave me my first job after jail in graduate school did a project on HIV/AIDS, and I had to work with people who were addicted to drugs. And I found out I really liked working with people who were addicted to drugs, having come from my own meth addiction. It was written nowhere in the stars that this is what I would end up doing. But because I had to do that thing, I had to go get the job because otherwise I couldn't pay rent. I said yes to that job that seemed really boring, working in a freaking food bank. It created the entire rest of my life for me. So I don't know what that yes is for you, but it's out there and you won't know it until you actually experience it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ignited Heroes Recovery Podcast. I really hope you found the information here useful and that we'll see you back here next week. And look, I want to make sure that this podcast is the most useful it can be for you, so please let me know by emailing info@ignited.com if there are any specific topics or questions you'd like to have addressed. As usual, if you like this episode, I would love for you to leave us a 5-star review and rating. Thanks, and see you next week.